You know that awkward moment when you've been working all night on making questions for a hypothetical class about the native Kentuckians later on? You know that awkward moment? You know, so 100 questions for native Kentuckians. I've just been totally fascinated with the about Kentuckians because this book here has a ton of information when it comes to the different archaeological evidence of the first peoples of Kentucky, and yeah, so it's pretty cool stuff. So I wanted to read the session recap about what Frankfort, the capital of Kentucky, what they've accomplished this year. And now remember, before we get into it, I'm gonna go through the past and fail. Maybe we'll be able to get through all of it. But the Kentucky is pretty much like the one of the worst shitholes, just pretty much the toilet bowl of America, right? Yeah, we're number one for cancer, pollution, basically anything and everything, right? We probably litter more drunk drivers, more accidents, more pollution, bourbon, violent, the saddest state, the most rapiest of prisons. And so it's got a whole host of issues, right? Just a whole a shit ton of issues. And let's see what Frankfurt this year has figured out to make our, ail what makes us woe, or to what to cure what ails us, to cure what makes us woe. Okay, so passed. In addition to passing a $20 billion state budget, so $20 billion is our state budget for the next biennium for the next 2 years, and a $4 billion road building plan. Legislators also approved these measures. So a state budget was passed for 2 years, and then there's a $4 billion road building plan that's going to be attached to it. So who knows where 24 fucking billion dollars is going to be spent in Kentucky. Most of it, or a whole shit ton of money, is going to be spent with the roads. There's one, two, three, four, five, six, um, seven major things that they passed. So Frankfurt's been, in legislature, for several fucking months. They have all year to work on these things, to make coalitions and to pass all these different bills. It's basically just like it's the opposite of Washington D.C., where you have the majority, you have a Democratic executive, but the houses are the exact opposite. So the Senate in D.C. is Democratic and the House is Republican, but here the Senate is Republican and the House is Democratic. Okay, so they passed abuse prevention. Senate Bill 98 will create a registry of individuals with a history of adult abuse or neglect that can be used by the adult care services industry to screen prospective employees. Okay, so abuse prevention of people abusing elder adults. We do have there's in weird Kentucky there's the angel of death, right? We got Charles Manson right there, but the angel of death, he was the man who Donald Harvey. He was the man who had killed like nearly 100 fucking people. He came out of Owsley County in Boonville, and he killed over 100 people. Most people don't even know who the fuck he is. He was just a nurse at a nursing home, and he just slowly would kill people slowly to death. So this is to have you get a history. You get to check out a history, see if it's okay. So that's good. Let's stop. Kentucky is like number one with child abuse, animal abuse, spousal abuse, elder abuse. So this is good to help curb the elder abuse. Cannabis oil. Now, Senate Bill 124 actually redeems Ronnie Lee Smith, the Libertarian candidate for sheriff out of Gallatin County. Now, for the last, 20 so years, Ronnie Lee Smith has been purporting that cannabis oil can solve a host of a number of ailments, such as seizures and a whole bunch of other stuff, cancer and some other things too. So Senate Bill 124 allows doctors at the University of Kentucky and University of Louisville hospitals to prescribe medicinal cannabis oil to treat juvenile seizures. When they were passing this, there was actually a kid that went into a seizure right there on the legislative floor. I don't think it was planned. It seemed like it was perfect theatrics, right? But regardless, it fucking worked. Cannabis oil is legal now in Kentucky, so we legalized hemp last year. We've legalized Cannabis Oil, this sets up for next year to legalize marijuana. Who will pick it up, the Republicans or the Democrats? We will find out. And Kentucky will legalize marijuana next year. I mean, that seems to be the inevitable ball. But okay, so they can't seem to get anything else done, but that's a huge fucking thing. That's a huge thing. Out of the 7 things that they've done, they've legalized marijuana, right? So now Kentucky is joining with the rest of the country and has joined in the progressiveness of the rest of the country and says that if you're sick, then you should be able to have medicine that'll cure you. Just because it's illegal doesn't mean you should die. I've had people die of cancer. I've had people die of ailments that could have been cured by cannabis oil or hemp oil. The cannabinoids, right? It activates the cannabinoids. And okay, so it doesn't work if you smoke it. It only works if you make it into an oil that you eat. Okay, so concealed weapons. House Bill 128 will allow those under emergency protective or domestic violence order to receive a 45-day permit to carry a concealed weapon. So this means anybody who is convicted of domestic violence, the victim will be allowed to carry a weapon around for 45 days. So that's incredible. That's really great. If we had a judicial system which works here in Kentucky. So, we're number 1 with corruption, poorly run, managed state. Lots of corruption. You get some power, then motherfuckers just go hog wild with that corruption. So what would happen, hypothetically, if instead of going after the abusers, the thing was turned around and it was going after the victims of domestic violence, so the children or the women who were getting beat up? What if they were the ones that was being put to blame for the violent episodes? It was her fault, Your Honor, and so now he gets to go around carrying a gun for 45 days. That's that's a lot of power for the judicial system when it comes to these domestic violence orders, the emergency protective orders. I think they should be done, but I think they should be done by good, honest people, not corrupt fucking pieces of shit. We need to actually know what's going on, what's the truth, what's the entire circumstances, what's justice, what's fair in this circumstance, in this situation, and to parse through those details. So that way you can actually get a good ruling on the thing. Don't just go with one person or another because of power or position in society, but because of what the truth of the matter is. Cybersecurity, House Bill number 5 will tighten the electronic safeguards among state agencies that hold personal data and require notification of citizens when a security breach occurs. So that's good cybersecurity. So any state agencies that has our personal information, if there's a breach, then we're going to be notified. So they'll tell us, hey, somebody stole all the files out of the fucking the driver's license, right? Driver's license bureau. All the information is gone, but they'll let you know, right? They won't. It doesn't really stop your information from being used for any identity theft, but it's something, right? Electronic cigarettes. Senate Bill 109 will prohibit the sale of e-cigarettes to minors. That's been a hot topic, actually, even in Washington. The e-cigarettes phenomenon. I've actually tried to do e-cigarettes. I smoke tobacco, and I need to stop smoking tobacco. It doesn't really. I do it because of the nicotine, really, because I feel like it calms me, it soothes me, it cures my anxiety. And so in e-cigarette you can get the nicotine, but you don't actually get the tar or any of the additives or any of the really unhealthy elements to it. But the vapor seems really, really harsh, so I'd have to get some actually better stuff. But anyways, so if you're under 18, you can't get e-cigarettes, which that makes sense, to be honest with you. You can't get cigarettes if you're tobacco cigarettes, so you can't get electronic cigarettes that both nicotine. That sounds fair. Alternative punishments. Senate Bill 200 will reform the state's juvenile justice system to redirect young offenders who commit certain nonviolent crimes such as skipping school, truancy, Huckleberry Finn type shit, or running away from home to community-based interventions rather than to jail. So if you're getting beat up in your house and you're being manipulated and manhandled at school and you try to run away, or you don't go to school, you go to fucking jail. That's what they do in Kentucky. They'll throw you in fucking prison. Like I said, it's the rapiest prisons, right? Fastest growing prison rates in the entire country. And Louisville's major problem is that you're throwing kids into school because, or into jail because they're skipping school. They're not getting anything out of the school system. They run away from their home because it's a bad, violent situation there, and people just bring them back and put them right back into the fucking bullshit. And so they don't have a chance. They don't have a shot in hell. So, what are we going to do? Senate Bill 200 reforms the state's juvenile justice system to redirect the young offenders to do community-based intervention. So now they're going to make them pick trash up and all this other shit. There's a big, the Beecher Terrace Frontline PBS special. They were showing how the kids in Louisville are getting suspended, they're getting kicked out of school, and they're going to prison and they're going to jail, essentially because they don't go to school. You even got Butyl High School, which is known as the jail. It's where all the troublemaking kids, and it's basically locked down fucking prison type environment. Everybody in single file line, shut your mouth, do this, do that. It's all about compliance, 100%. And that's what all the schools are about, 100% compliance. It's a totalitarian system. You want to know why you got a 50% a black population in the prisons? It's because 75% of the LMPD, the police force, are white male, and the JCPS, the Louisville schools, 75% are white females. So you want to know why there is institutional racism, is because people are still in these institutional powers. And what does a privileged white woman who's had no struggle in her life, what would she understand? She only understands making struggle for others, right? She doesn't understand easing the burden and actually giving a shit about the student and the community and their home life, and make sure that the full person is made to be self-actualized and can become a productive member of society. So that's alternative punishments. So now they're going to have community-based interventions, and instead of sending Huckleberry to fucking prison so he can get fucking raped. And Charlie Manson, he was sent to jail too. He was getting raped in prison when he was like 15 years old, and he was running away from the prison, but they kept bringing him back, just like this type of shit. He was put in prison to begin with for writing a bad check, like $15 check, and then he's getting raped, and then he's running away, and then they're forcing him back to get raped again, and then that's when Charlie Manson becomes demented and becomes the fucking psycho that we all know and love today. All right. School calendars. House Bill 211 allows schools to make up days missed due to inclement weather by extending the length of their school days and waive some missed days under certain circumstances. So schools could just move and change their calendars whenever. Big fucking whoop. Who gives a shit? That it kind of makes sense anyways. They couldn't actually pass or make any decision on that, so they just said, shit, just let the individual schools figure it out. Now there's a whole host of legislation that failed. Essentially, there's only 7 that got passed, so you can assume all the rest of them failed. These are some of the bigger ones that got failed. You got the heroin epidemic bill. Senate Bill 5 provided treatment for heroin addicts and stiffened penalties for drug dealers. Measure passed the Senate but stalled in the House over provisions dealing with needle exchanges and charging drug dealers with homicide if a customer died from a heroin overdose. Legislation could be revived in a special session, which that's kind of fucked up and insane. So I guess if somebody does cause someone to have a heroin overdose, they're saying the person that give them the drugs is the one that did it, but it's also the person's responsibility too. I guess that's not really fucked up. I was a little strong. But it's a little bit messed up because they didn't actually kill the person. So to say that they committed homicide, that would be, it would be if you overprescribed, or if you just prescribed somebody, just take one pain pill, one Oxycontin per day, and they just take them all. You can't change that, if the prescription, if they did it differently than how they were prescribed. Charter schools, it's fucking bullshit that Kentucky doesn't have any other ways to have charter schools. There is no competition. Yes, I don't want to erode the support for public education, but the support for public education needs to be eroded because it's an absolute shitty fucking totalitarian, fascist, dominating type of system, autocratic dictatorship, lack of democracy. They don't actually have any independent voices. They smash any type of spirituality or independent voices that you have. charter schools also, just by having the option, just by having the legal framework to be able to create a charter school, we would get a lot more money from the federal government in order to establish more charter schools. So just by having this law, we could have got like fucking billions of dollars more, but instead we're, you know, fucking backwards, dumb fucking Kentucky. I don't know if it's they're listening to the teachers union or what they're doing with this bill, but it's absolutely ridiculous that you're not even creating a pathway. So now what we got is public schools are purely private schools. We spend about $8,000 to $9,000 per pupil in Kentucky. Our students are one of the smartest, but we're not actually funding them comparably to the other states. So we could fund them more, but with the money that we're actually putting out there, we can put them to a Sudbury school or to an alternative model school that would actually create their whole person. It'd be a more of a holistic education, you know, to actually create the whole person, sort of like Summerhill or Sudbury or Montessori, where they follow the child and let them become the people who they actually are. So